After many years of impatiently waiting, ETF or no ETF, that is still the question. But by now, are there any answers? Hello, I am Adrian for Bitcoin for Beginners, the educational channel about all things Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in short and sweet fashion. Last week I did an explainer on the GBTC Bitcoin Trust. If you are interested in that video, we will include a link at the end of this video. As a follow-up, today I want to focus on updating the Bitcoin ETF status, because recently there have been several developments, such as statements by SEC Chairman Jay Clayton in a CNBC interview. We will see if that gives us any clues about an ETF approval. And the launch of a so-called limited ETF by VanEck. We will explore what that is all about. Also, there are important SEC decision dates approaching next few weeks, which we will share with you. We will also take a closer look and see what's up with the current running applications. Those are VanEck and SolidX, Bitwise, and Wilshire Phoenix. All of this should help us understand what we can expect next. Is it likely the SEC approves any ETF application, and if there would be a real ETF launch in 2019? What are experts saying, and is there anything to say about the Bitcoin price around all this? Please pause the video here to read our full disclaimer. Of course, as always, this presentation is not investment advice. It is only educational content and personal opinion. Already in an earlier stage, SEC Chairman Jay Clayton had said that he expects a Bitcoin ETF to be approved eventually, but that first some of their concerns have to be resolved. In a recent interview a couple of days ago, he once again confirmed that before approving a Bitcoin ETF, the SEC first needs to be comfortable with custody and custody security, and the concern that trading largely takes place on foreign, unregulated exchanges. He said that progress has been made, but there is still work left to be done. But first, before we continue, if you like our content, we highly appreciate it if you give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for even more updates. This will also support our channel while you get great updates and educational content about crypto stripped down to its essence. In 2018, already 9 ETFs were rejected by the SEC, including all derivative-based products that we discussed last year. Those were from ProShares, Direction and Granite Shares. Along with those, also the normal physical Bitcoin-backed ETF by Winklevoss Brothers was denied. Only the normal physical Bitcoin-backed VanEck SolidX ETF is still in process, which is now already its third or even fourth attempt. However, in 2019 there are also a couple of new applications currently in process. Bitwise Asset Management and Wilshire Phoenix. Both are for the New York Stock Exchange Arca listing, both are normal ETF and physical Bitcoin-backed. Let's make an overview of the current applications and highlight some of their details, focusing on what the SEC also looks at. The oldest of all is the VanEck and SolidX ETF for CBOE listing. This is the one that since last year got the most attention because they would be backed by real Bitcoin and were expected to have the highest chance to get approved at some point in time. Remarkable with this ETF is the enormous underlying per share. One share equals 25 Bitcoin, which is about $250,000 at current prices. Reason for them to do this is their focus on institutional investors and not retail investors, which should make the SEC more comfortable with their product. Another SEC concern that they addressed is the security of the Bitcoins in custody. In their filing, they claim to have an insurance in place for the stored funds. The Bitwise ETF is based on the Bitwise Total Return Index, and very interesting is that this represents the value of Bitcoin plus meaningful forks, which could theoretically also include forks like Bitcoin Cash if those would happen after the ETF launch. On the SEC's custody concern, regulated third-party custodians store the Bitcoins of the trust. They have also addressed the manipulation concern of the SEC. They have a special method of drawing of prices from regulated exchanges only. The Wilshire Phoenix ETF is actually a basket of Bitcoin, US Treasury bills and US dollar. This deals with the volatility concern. The diversification with Treasury bills and USD should greatly reduce the price volatility of the product. On the custody concern, they will have a $200 million theft insurance for the Bitcoins in custody. In a surprise move, the first week of September, VanEck and SolidX launched a so-called limited ETF. The term seems to be more for marketing or imagination purposes, and it is not even clear if VanEck themselves came up with it or one of the reporting journalists, because a real ETF it is not so much. This product was launched relying on an SEC exemption so that they didn't need to have an approval for this trust that is holding Bitcoin. Only some accredited investors are allowed to buy through a private placement. These can be banks, hedge funds, etc., but explicitly not retail investors. The product would also not be listed on exchanges, and in fact it is actually more similar to Grayscale's GBTC Bitcoin Trust, with a small difference. Share redemption with this new product is possible for the qualified participants. This means more arbitrage opportunity, which in theory should lead to a price closer to the BTC price, without so much of a premium. It's only a week old, so technically still a short lifetime so far, but definitely not much of a success. The total size of the trust is about 4 BTC now, which is about $40,000. So institutional demand for this product is not exactly exuberant yet. But maybe interest for this product will gradually grow over time. The other theoretic scenario could be that VanEck and SolidX are live testing with an ETF-like product and alongside building confidence with the SEC for their real ETF in application. As mentioned in the beginning of this video, there are some SEC decision deadlines approaching. Those are for VanEck and SolidX on October 18 and Bitwise on October 13. Both are final decisions, which means final approval or final rejection. Only Wilshire Phoenix on September 29 has not completed the entire period and therefore could still be delayed. Up to this point, can we now finally expect a positive decision soon? Realistically speaking, it seems that the SEC still has some concerns that need to be addressed, even though progress has been made on the most important areas. The proposal from Bitwise is also interesting from the perspective that they claim to be drawing legitimate prices from regulated exchanges with legitimate volume. This would theoretically take away price manipulation concern that the SEC has. The SEC has, however, not yet responded to this solution as proposed in Bitwise's product. Besides that, previously the SEC had stated that all those regulated exchanges have very low volume and that most trading takes place elsewhere in an unregulated foreign environment. On top of that, manipulation itself is not the only concern, also the ability to track, investigate and prosecute violations. Therefore, it still remains to be seen if anything gets approved, but also keep in mind that anything can happen. If the current applications are being rejected, it is likely that new filings will be made by the current sponsors. The SEC will also give precise reasons for the rejections, which can then be used to adjust the specifics in the next filing. Crypto lawyer Jake Chervinsky also had a take on the comments that SEC Chair Jay Clayton made in the recent interview. He says we need to read between the lines and that the actual message is someday Bitcoin ETF will be approved, but that day ain't today. Chervinsky added, the manipulation issue still hasn't been resolved and we don't even know where the SEC falls on custody. Hester Peirce, who is better known in the crypto world as Crypto Mom and is an SEC commissioner who is very pro-Bitcoin ETF. In her opinion, the ETF should have already been approved if it were up to her. In December 2018, she said the following during a fireside chat, but it still remains relevant today. Don't hold your breath, it could come tomorrow or in 20 years. I do caution people to not live or die on when a crypto or Bitcoin ETF gets approved. All in all, we can say that decisions by the SEC can take a lot of time. It will not be a question if an ETF gets approved, more so when it will be approved. However, it looks like we will not have a real ETF in 2019 just yet. It is important to stay patient, but simultaneously be well prepared for the possibility if an ETF suddenly does get approved anytime in the foreseeable future. I would take the words and recommendations by Jake Chervinsky and Hester Peirce therefore at heart. Lastly, is there anything we can say about the price when it comes to the ETF? In last August, on a specific day, the SEC delayed yet another ETF decision. The Bitcoin price didn't react that much, but the day was followed by a somewhat larger decline. It is, however, debatable if that was really ETF delay related. Price action lately seems to appear less violent on ETF news, so it might be that the market is not really expecting an approval either. Some people are also comparing the gold price to what happened when gold ETFs were introduced. As you see in this chart, the gold price did amazing after the launch of the first gold ETF and the more that followed. Keep in mind that you can see that at a certain point the price really got overinflated and suffered a strong 45% correction. It is not to say that Bitcoin will follow the same pattern of gold after ETFs get approved, but it is certainly what many are expecting to happen more or less. Either way, it doesn't hurt to keep this picture in mind. The Bitcoin ETF saga will continue for sure, and you can expect more updates from us in the future about it, as our channel is all about education. Hope to see you soon for another topic. Stay up to date by subscribing to our channel to enjoy all of our new material.